All right. Welcome in episode 2 of Mile High on Broad. We're going to start this week off recapping the wild card weekend. And then we're going to jump into what's coming up here in the divisional round. First off, Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Ben. Last week was one of the best weeks of football I think I've seen in a long, long time. I know we had a obviously small sample size because it's the playoffs and also less games, but man, Ben, I think every single game had a compelling storyline, except for maybe the last one. But we can get into that a little bit more later. How are you?
I'm doing good, and wild weekend, I think. After last week, we all agreed 6 for 6, which I personally thought was shocking that we agreed on all 6 games. We went 4-2, which isn't bad, but I thought that all the games, they were all good games. They were all interesting. I think they all had stories. Even the last one, I think, had some interesting things about it. It was a good week of football all around, I felt. So, yeah, let's jump into some of these games. Let's talk about this wild weekend. So first up, Seahawks, Niners. That was the first game on Saturday. 49ers win that game 41-23 to go ahead and advance. And, watching this game, I think we both kind of saw how this was going to go. And it went, exactly how we both kind of predicted. Pretty much a blowout by the side of the Niners. And, my easy takeaways are that Gino is an average quarterback. He is who we thought he was. Um, and Brock Purdy is amazing. Or is he? Time will tell. I mean, the kid's played 7 games. He's only thrown 200 passes in the NFL, so maybe he comes down to earth. His stat line isn't anything crazy. 18 to 30, 332 is good. But when you got guys like Debo running it for 80 yards a catch, he went 3 with no picks and had a rushing touchdown. I mean, that's a solid line for a quarterback. Um, but man, this Niners roster is just absolutely stacked. And I try and find a weakness and
Good
I just
luck.
can't do it. And I don't know. I mean, this might be the perfect place for a rookie quarterback to try and play because I feel like you'd almost have to try to screw up this team. So I don't know. What'd you think?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I especially agree with your last point there about this is one of, if not the most complete rosters in the NFL. I mean, that there's a reason why right now Tom Brady is being linked to trying to go to San Fran next year. Right now, who knows if Kyle Shanahan's even going to want to move off Brock Purdy, but it's another conversation for another day. But point being is that yeah, man, that roster is so good. The offense is so good. That line is very good, and it's being stalwarted by Trent Williams, who is one of the best tackles of this generation. He's a future Hall of Famer. You have all pros at the wide receiver position in Debo. You have all pro in George Kittle. You have Brandon Ayuk as your third or fourth target on the offense because you also have McCaffrey coming out of the backfield. I mean, what do you want more on that offense, right? And so, no, I agree. I think props to Pete Carroll. I think the first half he actually made it look really competitive. I was actually shocked after that first half. Gino was like 9 for 10. Seattle was winning at halftime, but San Fran, they're just too good. You can't hope to stop them. You can only hope to contain them, and they contained them as best as they could. But yeah, San Fran was just too good in the end.
All right. So simple yes or no question before we move on to the next game. Are the 49ers the best team in the league right now? As an Eagles fan, I know this is going to be a hard question for you, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
It's not a hard question to ask. It's just a hard question to want to answer because I want to try and live in denial as much as I can, but I don't think I can do it. I think I have to be honest with you and tell you, yeah, I think San Fran is the team to beat right now.
How did they ever lose to the Denver Broncos? All right, moving on.
And the Chicago Bears.
Second, did they? Oh, they did too. That is
Week
sad.
one.
All right, moving on. Second game of the week: Chargers, Jags. We both got this game. We picked the Jags to win. I don't think either of us really saw the game going this way. Herbert had a very pedestrian day: 25 of 43, 1 touchdown, no picks, 273 total yards. Trevor Lawrence, on the other hand, 28 of 47, 288, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks. And I think this game really came down to one thing. It's a tale of two halves. Not Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, first half, 4 picks, no touchdown. Second half, 4 touchdowns, no picks, brings his team back. Wow. I don't even know how to look at this game. I was blown away by how this game turned out, but ton of fun to watch.
Yeah, a lot of fun to watch for sure. And what's crazy was I was watching the game with some of my buddies, and I was even texting you where going into that halftime, as soon as Jacksonville put up that touchdown right before the half, you were like, oh well, it looks like we got our first one wrong. I was like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of time left to play, right? And they ended up rallying to come back. I mean, just I don't know what more to say other than that was the game of the week. It was a fantastic game for sure. Definitely a game of two halves, and I think that a lot of this falls at the feet of the head coach, and we'll see if Staley ends up getting let go. It doesn't sound like he will. It sounds like they moved on from their coordinator, and that's how that's going to go down. So I don't
That's
know.
official land, man.
Yeah, I think a lot of this also comes down to the week before, right? They played their starters all week against you guys in the Broncos in a meaningless game, and guess who got hurt? Mike Will. And if you're missing your 1A or 1B, however you want to look at him, between him and Keenan Allen, if you're missing him, it's a good chunk of the offense. And I think Mike Will would have made a big difference in that game. And I think Staley's play calling in the second half, or I guess Lombardi's coaching in the second half, for play calling, only running the ball 8 times in the second half when you have a 27 point there. I guess it was a 20-point lead going into the halftime. Inexcusable. And just crazy all around. A great game though.
At halftime, they were up when they were up 27 points. They had 7 carries, seven carries. Okay, ETN had 14 at that point, 14 carries, and you're down 27 points, and you're running the ball. If you pass, you burn what, 5 seconds off the clock? If you run,
Something
you're
like
burning
that.
45. I don't care if you want to blame the offensive coordinator or just play calling. If you're the head coach, you call up there and you go, dude, run the ball.
Yep.
This is just another example of the Chargers charging and Stanley
Yep.
trying to pretend like he's the smartest dude in the room, and once
He's not.
again killing his team. So I thought the coaching was definitely a big line on that game. Dougie P just deciding he's going to win this game or he's going to go home, and he didn't care either way. He went for 2, he missed it, he went back down the field, and he went for 2 again, knowing full well if they didn't get it, he was going to lose. They got it, and that field goal let them win the game. So
Shout out Dougie P.
ballsy calls, and I'll take it. Real quick, my last key point from this game, and I thought was really interesting. The Jaguars got a lot of crap for their offseason additions, especially when it came to their receiving core. And
Christian Kirk, Zay Jones,
fun
Marvin
fact:
Jones,
Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram, 8 for 74 in a touchdown, 8 for 78 in a touchdown, and 7 for 83 in a touchdown. All 3 of those guys put up big games. All 3 of those guys scored touchdowns and helped you win this game, and they weren't as silly as we thought they were.
Good point.
All right, next game, Dolphins, Bills. How was this game this close? 34 Bills, 31 Dolphins, a 3-point victory by a team that should have blown a third-string Skylar Thompson out. What the heck happened here?
I mean, it's pretty simple, man. When you turn the ball over, I mean, you give the other team extra possessions, and you're giving away points. And so that's what they did. Josh Allen, he was very much a roller coaster in that game. He had some high highs, he had some low lows. I saw something out there saying that this week Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills attempted more deep passes than any team has attempted all season long. And if you're going deep every play, you're going to get what you're going to get, right? You're going to have to ride the highs, and you're going to have to bear the consequences of the lows. And Josh Allen turned the ball over, I believe it was 3 times. He had 2 interceptions and a fumble, if I'm not mistaken. And so, you give Skylar Thompson enough possessions. I mean, sure, he may have completed 35%, 40% of his passes or whatever it was, but if you give him an extra 3 possessions, they're going to put up some points on short field. And so, it's crazy.
I love correcting you on stats. It's never happened, so it's one of my favorite things.
Let's hear it.
It was 2 picks and 3 fumbles for Josh Allen. 5 turnovers.
5 turnovers. That's
not good.
Not 5.
When I looked at this game and I went back and I was looking at some of the numbers, and I'm like, man, 31-34. Skylar Thompson goes 18 of 45 with 2 picks, and this game was 3. And I'm like, what is going on, man? And then I looked at Allen's stat, and I was like, Jesus. I mean, this guy leads the league in red zone turnovers this year, and clearly he's regressed this year. The dude's still a phenomenal quarterback, but I don't know if the ball missing is causing it, but clearly something's missing there.
I think so. I think that's a good point. And that's a good segue into our next one. What are we talking about next?
Giants and Vikings. And coach of the year, coaching up the Giants. This is the first game that we got wrong on the week. Giants
Yeah.
31, Vikings 24. Man, I knew the Giants were going to show up to play, but I didn't think they had the weapons to win this game. But hey, look, Vikings get exposed for the pretenders we all thought they were. I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to be against the Giants. We can look at the quarterbacks. Daniel Jones looks like Josh Allen 2 years ago. He runs around a lot. He throws okay passes, and it's just enough to win the game for his team. And Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins. He had an okay game, and once again, they lose the game. What did you think of this game?
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, I think the way that we broke down the game was kind of how it went down. It was just we just got the scoreline wrong, right? I mean, you and I both said that it was going to be a pretty close game. We said the Giants don't have the weapons to blow out the Vikings, and Vikings were undefeated this year in one possession games, and so that's why we thought they were going to win. It looks like history finally caught up to them. Things kind of leveled out to the means eventually, and the Vikings finally lost their first one possession game this year, but it was still within that one possession game. So while we got it wrong, I still feel good about our analysis on how we got to our conclusion. But look, man, I think a lot of people are going to throw this at Kirk Cousins and blame this on him. I don't know. For me, he threw a hair under 80%. He had 270 some odd yards in the air, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's a textbook game that you should win. No picks, but the defense. I mean, how do you give up 140 rushing yards and 300 passing yards?
They're bad.
It's 340 yards in a game. You can't do that. And so for me, I don't blame this on Cousins, even though that last play was questionable at best. Throwing the ball probably 5 to 8 yards, short of the line of scrimmage or of the line to gain. But overall, I got to say, man, shout out to the Giants. Good for you guys. You guys looked good last week, and I'm just hoping my Eagles take this whole full week to prepare because they looked legit last week.
I mean, we talked about it last week, man. That Vikings defense. I mean, they were the worst and the second worst in the league in every category. They were bad, and it showed. The one plus I can say, T.J. Hawkinson looks like maybe one of the best acquisitions of the year. 10 of 11 for 129 yards. Him and Justin Jefferson are going to do some big things in the coming years. All right, next game. This is another one. We got it right, but it was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Ravens, Bengals, 17-24. And, man, I don't even know how much there to talk about this game. I didn't think it was a great game on either side of the ball. It was, what you could probably expect for the third time these guys have met, back-to-back weeks meeting, especially with the Ravens team that just wants to get down and run the ball. I mean, it was very grinded out kind of a division win, and it was what it was. But my storyline, I think, was simply, what the hell was Huntley thinking, trying to reach 2 yards for a touchdown and letting Hubbard just run it back? I mean, that's the difference in the game right there. Is you trying? It's not even like they were he was 2 yards back trying to reach across the line. Like, what are you thinking, man? I mean, this is why you shouldn't be a quarterback.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a quite boneheaded decision, but I definitely tried to tell you, man. I tried to tell you this game was going to be close. I tried to tell you that the Bengals the Ravens defense had Joe Burrow's number this year. Well, I think Burrow only had like 209 yards passing and a touchdown. I mean, that was right around what he'd averaged for the first 2 games. So
1 a touch, yep.
I was not very surprised by the outcome of it. Well, I guess I was surprised at how we got to the outcome, but I was not surprised of the way that this game went down. I knew it was going to be closer than it should have been. But I got to say, Harbaugh, why are you having your quarterback, your backup quarterback, sneak it from 3 yards out, 2 yards out, whatever that was? You have J.K. Dobbins in the backfield. I know he was very outspoken after the game, and while maybe that might not be the best decision for the locker room, I don't think he's wrong in what he said. He didn't get a single touch, and I think if you give it to J.K. Dobbins or if Lamar Jackson plays that game, you have a very different outcome. So Lamar has a compelling case to, get his money in this offseason. But, I think that was a winnable game for Baltimore. Just got to be a little bit smarter at the end. But, hey, Huntley's a backup for a reason. But Harbaugh should know better to give it to his, pretty good running back.
All right, and last game, so it's Monday night. A lot of mixed emotions, I think, around the country with this game. Monday night means you got a short week going in the playoffs. Kind of an odd decision, but they did it. It's fun. Everybody likes having Monday night football. Cowboys, Bucks. We missed this game too, and we'll talk about some of this. But it was just an ugly game to start, and then it just got uglier for the Bucks, which just allowed Dak Prescott to look like the quarterback that we all know he's not. Um, 25 of 33, 305 yards and 4 touchdowns with another one on the ground rushing. Um, man, Brady tried his hardest. He threw 66 passes in that game. But I mean, that team is just not what it was. I mean, it's not who they've been all year. And I mean, this is the Bucs team we saw all year. They got Tom Brady and they have a bunch of absolutely nothing else on that roster that can put it together and cohesively get it done. And I think that coaching staff and that ownership needs to look at dismantling them because this was ugly from who they were a year ago, 2 years ago, to who they are today. It's bad. It's just bad.
Yeah, no, it's definitely bad. And yeah, like you said, I mean, those first 2 possessions by each team, it's just ugly. I mean, that was the fastest 2 possessions I'd ever seen from a side. So we had 4 possessions inside of like 3 minutes. I mean, that was just crazy. It was like the first possession was like 13 seconds. Like, giving the ball back and then 40 seconds. I was like, what is this? It's absolutely nuts. Another key takeaway that I think that we didn't touch on so far was the whole Brett Maher situation. 4 missed field goals. 4. And they're not even
extra
field
points.
goals. They're extra points.
Extra points.
And so
4.
I don't know. I don't know how that can happen. What's even crazier to me is that Jerry Jones is letting him ride with it. And we'll see what they feel about next week because it was interesting because towards the end of the game, as the game was starting to get out of control, there was an attempt for a field goal that could have happened. It was like 4th and 3, 4th and 4, 4th and 6, something like that. And you saw Brett Maher start to try to run out to the field, and then he quickly got called back on because the coaching staff clearly lost faith in him for at least that night. So we'll see how that affects him next week. We'll see if he can't snap out of his funk because if he can't, I mean, he's really losing his job. But if he can, we'll see. We'll see how the Cowboys maybe feel about him going into next year. But I'm surprised that he didn't lose his job immediately after the game. That Jerry didn't tell him to find his own way home because you're not on this team anymore.
You're a kicker. You got one job and one job only. No one's allowed to touch you. Kick the ball through the uprights. Missing 4 extra points is unexcusable. You shouldn't have a job anymore. There's plenty of guys out there that can kick a football. But whatever. My takeaway from this game was really, from the running back position on both sides. Playoff Lenny who? 5 for 11. Go home. The dude's not good. He clearly doesn't want to play football. He doesn't put in the effort, and he's gotten fat. Peace. Dump the dude. And then second, Pollard is clearly the best running back on that team. And we'll get into this, on another day, but I have no idea how they're going to keep him with Zeke's contract. So it should be really interesting to see how that kind of breaks down in this offseason. So that's kind of recap of last week's games. Definitely a wild weekend. Some cool things came out of it. Touched on these teams and some of their pluses and minuses from last week. The first 2 games we're going to talk about are Saturday games. And, we'll talk probably a little bit more about the number 1 seeds in both of these games just because we haven't touched on them much. But first game Saturday, 4:30, we got the Jags at the Chiefs. Kansas City 8.5-point favorites, which is the largest spread on the weekend. The over-under 53 is the highest point spread on the weekend as well. This is going to be nuts. I was looking at some of these numbers. We all know who the Jags are. They've been average all season. They're literally in the middle of the pack for everything that they do. And, Trevor Lawrence has been very hot and cold, even last week. 4 and 4. I mean, you can't be any more hot and cold than you were. Meanwhile, you got Kansas City, number 1 in points, number 1 in yards, number 1 in passing on the year. They're not even bad defensively, 11th and 16th in points and yards allowed on defense. Kansas City is who Kansas City's always been, and I hate to admit it, but losing Tyreek Hill did absolutely nothing to hurt this team at all.
It did not.
What are you thinking of this game, Mike?
Look, to me, you can throw all the stats out there that you'd like. The only thing that really matters to me is when you look at what teams are like after all-time historic comebacks, and that's what we saw last week was, the third best, largest, comeback in a postseason history for the Jags. Teams do not come out well the next week. I mean, it never happens well in any sport that you want to go to. And most recently, you can look at March Madness. I believe it was like 2 years ago. I think it was Gonzaga had a crazy, come from behind where, they were losing by like 30 at the half and they ended up coming back and winning on like a buzzer beater. And then in the finals, they got absolutely just ramrodded and it wasn't close and it never looked close. And I just have a feeling that something like that's going to happen again. I think the Jags are going to be coming off that high. It's really hard to come back from a high like that where, not that they won the Super Bowl, but it is a Super Bowl winning feeling, right? You feel really good about yourself. And I just think they're going to come out flat. I think they're all on coupled that with the fact that they're mismatched. On the Chiefs side of things, I think the Chiefs have a great team from top to bottom. Starting with Mahomes, who's going to win his second MVP, and Andy Reid, who is an elite coach. He's an all-time coach. He's 27-4 coming off of a bye week. I don't think this one's going to be close, man. I think the over is going to hit, but I think the Chiefs are going to cover. I don't think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be 31-14 in the end for the Chiefs.
So, it's funny you say that. You think this team could come out really sluggish after a win like that. Hey, what happened last week? They came out really sluggish, and what did Trevor Lawrence do? Figured it out at halftime, and he put on an elite performance to come back and win that game. And that's what elite quarterbacks do, and that's who Trevor Lawrence is becoming. And in all seriousness, there's no way that the Jaguars beat the Chiefs.
No.
This team is elite, and they're going to score. I disagree with you in the fact I think the Jags only score 14. I think they put up more than that, but I don't think it's going to matter. I've thought this all year. I've talked about this all year. The Chiefs are that team that is so good, and they know that they're so good. They're like a cat playing with a mouse. When they want to beat you, they beat you. And when they just want to mess with you, toss you around, that's what they do. But when they need to turn it on, they just turn it on and march down the field, and there's really nothing that anybody seems to be able to do to stop them. So I definitely think the Chiefs are going to win this game. Definitely think they can cover too. It's really just going to come down to whether or not they want to cover or whether they just want to win by 7, because whatever they want to do, that's what they're going to do. So we both take KC in that game. Easy peasy. Don't think we had any question. Evening game, 8:15 kickoff. Giants, Eagles, division game. Philadelphia 7.5-point favorites, which is the second largest spread on the weekend. 48-point over under, third point spread on the weekend. What do you think about this game, Mike? I know you're an Eagles fan, so I'm going to let you take the lead here. Eagles coming off the bye. Jalen Hurts off the injury report. But this Giants team surprising everybody. How you feeling?
So for some of you guys that don't know out there, Ben and I, whenever we are talking about how the Eagles are going to do this week, and whenever I tell him I'm nervous, he always tells me, Mike, every time you've been nervous, they won. Ben, this is not a show. This is not me putting on an act. This is not me trying to placate into this. I am nervous about this game, man. Look, we all know how hard it is to sweep a divisional team, right? Even if the teams aren't very good, right? You were talking about it earlier with the Chiefs and the Broncos. I mean, the Broncos almost beat the Chiefs twice, and the Broncos were a bottom 5 team in the league this year, and the Chiefs very well could be the number 1 team in the league this year. I think the Eagles and Giants are clearly much closer in competition than that, and that just kind of goes to show that on any given Sunday, anyone can lose. And so, yeah, it's hard to sweep a series, which the Eagles did this year. It's really hard to win 3 times in 1 year. Statistically, it's happened 24 times, and 15 times the team that has swept the season ends up winning. So it's about a 60% win rate, give or take a couple points. So that right there is already telling me that the Giants have at least a 40% chance to win this game. On top of, I'm nervous about Jalen Hurts. Like you said, he's off the injury report, so that's good. But the bad news is he didn't look very good last time we saw him. And I know he was hurt last time that we saw him, and, but I'm also still nervous that he's either A, lost his mojo, or B, he's going to be a little bit rusty because he's played 1 game in the last, 4 weeks. Because, there were 2 weeks that we lost. 3rd week he played, week off, and now. So this is his 2nd game in 5 weeks. Makes me kind of nervous. We're getting some guys back, but I don't know how healthy everybody is. We're getting Lane Johnson back, who was supposed to have season-ending abdominal surgery, but he pushed that off, and so he's actually healthy enough to play this week. But how healthy is healthy enough when you got Kayvon Thibodeau coming up against you, or that Giants pass rush coming against you? And Josh Sweat is coming off of a really bad-looking neck injury, man. That looked brutal when he didn't come up from the Saints game. Very, very scary. He was transported to the hospital. He said he was going to come back, but again, I don't know how healthy he is. So I don't know if we're 100%. Saquon has looked really good this season, and that's been the best way to beat the Eagles, is to come at us against us with the run. Daniel Jones has looked very solid these last couple of weeks. And so while I'm not somebody that is sold on Daniel Jones, I'm sold on Brian Daboll and what Brian Daboll can do and what Daboll can make Daniel Jones look like. So look, man, I'm nervous. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm taking the Giants to win this one 28-24, and you're not going to find a person who hopes to God that they are more wrong than I am right now, but I am highly nervous about this one. Ben, please calm me down a little bit.
I think you bring up some good points. Jalen Hurts is, I don't know if he's lost his mojo, rusty, I think for sure. I think he definitely wasn't healthy, 100% 2 weeks ago. But I mean, yeah, I mean, he missed 2 games, played very mediocre. You could tell there was some rust on him. I don't think he's gotten it all off. And then he took another week off. I mean, I get you get the bye. Good news, he's probably healthy. I mean, he's 4 weeks removed from that injury. So I mean, that's the good news as long as he can reactivate it. But how much rust is there going to be on him? And how long is it going to take for him to work out those kinks and get the ball moving? And I think that's really what it's going to come down to. Jalen Hurts is going to be the reason you guys win or lose this game, I think. And the good news is I don't think you can get rusty when it comes to running around, and that's what Jalen Hurts has the ability to do. If things break down, he can get out of the pocket. He can try and make some things happen, at least until he kind of finds a groove. And you do have some elite weapons, man. Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I mean, he has the weapons to make stuff happen. I get it. We talked about it last week when it came to weapons and beating the Vikings, but the Eagles have weapons, man. They can try and make some things happen, and we all know if it's 4th and 1, they're going to make it happen. The thing I thought was funny, we mentioned it's going to come down to Saquon Barkley. It's come down to Saquon Barkley all year. Can he get it done? Except for apparently last week when it didn't matter. 9 carries for Saquon Barkley last week. Not sure what that was. Maybe they're just
all the carries.
Yeah, it's like maybe they're just saving it up for him. We'll see how he kind of plays, but yeah, I mean, they can have a huge rushing game against you guys, and I definitely think this game will be a lot closer than it is. I'm really kind of getting more intrigued to see how Daniel Jones plays and how much more he's growing into a mini Josh Allen, a guy who wasn't really expected to be great, but has somehow figured out how to use his legs as a weapon, Brian DeBall, and complete enough passes when he can to make stuff happen. So I'm excited to watch the game. I think it's going to be good. I still think the Eagles win this game. I don't think they cover, but I definitely think they're going to win this game. I think all around, the team is just too good to be beat. Sunday,
right.
3:00, Bengals, Bills. Going into the year, before the season started, I said the Bills were going to go to the Super Bowl. They were the best team. I'm definitely not taking the Bills to win a Super Bowl. We'll talk about some of the differences. Buffalo's a 5-point favorite, over-under 48. I will be taking the Bengals to win this game straight up, not even just to cover. I'm kind of out on the Bills. I think they're a great team, but they clearly have some issues. And I don't know if they can overcome a Bengals team that when they want to be good has been really, really good. Especially if they start making some mistakes like they did last week. It's easy to escape when they play the team they played. Not so much against the Bengals team.
Yeah, I think something that I don't know how you missed on this one. I mean, the DeMar Hamlin factor. This is a rematch of that exact game that didn't happen, right? And look, man, if Hamlin is on the sidelines, obviously, look, he's not playing. I don't know when he will ever play again, if he ever plays again. But if he's on the sidelines for that, I mean, everybody knows how crazy the Bills Mafia is, right? I mean, these guys are infamous for jumping off of chairs, pouring ketchup and mustard on themselves, and just being wild. And so if Hamlin is at that game, I think that crowd is going to be something to behold. But look, at the end of the day, the crowd can only influence a game so much. And look, let's be honest, Allen looked pretty pedestrian last week. I don't know if he's going to, well, not that I don't know. He's definitely not going to be able to get away with looking like that again this week against the Bengals. And, I think Joe Burrow is easily the second best quarterback in the league right now, behind only Patrick Mahomes. And, having his best friend Jamar Chase, another, top 20, top 24 wide receiver in T. Higgins, and then probably the best number 3 wide receiver in the league of Tyler Boyd is just going to be too much to overcome with Josh Allen turning the ball over too much. I expect we're going to see some magic out of both of these guys. I think we're going to see I think the big difference is going to be that consistency that we're going to see from Joe Burrow. I think he's going to look like Joe Cool again. He's going to be who he is. He's going to be efficient. He's going to be good. something along the lines of, a stat line of like, 27 of 35 with, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns or something like that. And I think Josh Allen's turnovers is just, he's going to have 1 or 2 of them. And that's going to be their undoing. I think the Bengals are going to win also. I got a score of 31-24.
That rematch of that game, it's going to be an interesting game. It'll be very interesting to see how the emotions on both sides kind of play through. I know they've both played a game since, but coming back to that game that they didn't finish in week 17, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how that plays out, especially if they have DeMar Hamlin there. So it's going to be an interesting game. I'm definitely excited to watch it. I think of all the games we've talked about so far, I think of all the games this weekend, even the one we haven't gotten to yet, it's definitely the one I'm the most intrigued to kind of see how it's going to play out. I think teams both have the ability to be really good. This also, has the ability to be a very pedestrian game as well, especially if emotions are flying and it gets sloppy. So see how it goes. And then last game, Sunday, 6:30, Cowboys, 49ers. San Francisco, 3.5-point favorites, over under 46. Vegas boys do not see this being a high scoring game, and they think it's going to be a very close game. These teams on paper are actually very similar. Dallas has allowed the 5th most points or the 5th least amount of points scored against them. San Francisco, however, has the 6th highest scoring point totals. On the other side of the ball, Dallas, 4 fewest points scored against them. San Francisco has allowed, or 4th most points scored. San Francisco obviously has allowed the least amount of points this season. So on paper, this should be a really good game. I don't think it's going to be. The guy we saw last week is not who Dak is, and the Niners are who we say they are. They're the best team in football, and they are absolutely going to shellac the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think what's going on there with Vegas is I think Vegas is contemplating whether which Cowboys are we going to get and have show up. I mean, we've seen the Cowboys 2 weeks ago lose to the Commanders and just lay an absolute egg when they had, in theory, everything to play for. They didn't know what was going on with the Eagles. They didn't know what was going on with San Francisco. So they had everything to play for, and they came out and they just laid an egg. They lost terribly. But then they came out last week and they looked fantastic against Tom Brady and what is the Bucks? Somewhere in the top 5 defense. I don't know where people maybe want to put them, but they're certainly a top 5 defense. And after the first 2 possessions, they shellacked them, right? And it wasn't very close. So I think that's what Vegas is considering, is the fact that it's either going to be a blowout or it's going to be a really close game, and they're kind of splitting hairs there. But got to be honest, I think that this is going to be a blowout for the Niners also. I don't think this is going to be very close. We talked about it earlier. The Niners just have too many weapons all over the field. They have all pro calibers everywhere. And I just think the Cowboys are going to show up and do Cowboy things. Final score of 38-17 for the Niners.
I think you said it. The Buccaneers, who? That's who they've been all year. They've been very what the heck all year. You've been looking at Bucs teams like, this team should be good. What? And they're just not. And they've been like that all year. Honestly, I didn't even know they were going to make the playoffs. They almost didn't, and the Panthers almost went. It was, at one point the Falcons, who we thought were going to be the worst team in football, almost were the best team. That's how bad this Bucs teams were. They had Tom Brady, which I think is the only reason they end up anywhere close to making the playoffs. So I don't think for any stretch of time we could pretend like the Cowboys beating up on a pedestrian team like they did last week is any indication of who this team is, especially when they come into contact with a team like the 49ers. The one thing that I did see when I watched that game with the Cowboys was Dak had to run a lot. He had to move outside the pocket. He had to make things happen. And what happened was the Buccaneers apparently sent their entire secondary home early because they know they were going to lose. They were already on their way to Cancun. And they just threw some jerseys on some dudes and threw them out on the field because literally no one was covered for most of that game. But Dak still had to move. And I can tell you one thing: the Niners are not going to leave people wide open. And if you thought the Bucs pass rush was rough, wait till you meet Nick Bosa. Dak is going to spend a lot of time on his back, and we all know when Dak gets rattled, bad things happen. So I just think that the Cowboys are going to come into this game thinking that they're hot shit, and the reality of the matter is they're not as good as they think they are. They haven't been as good as everyone thought they've been all year. I don't think they were 13-3, 14-3, whatever they ended up. I don't think they were in that conversation of elite teams. They're good. They're a good team. They got a good offensive weapons. They got a average to above average quarterback. They got a stellar defense right now. They're super aggressive, but aggression can kill you if you're too aggressive. And it showed before with Dallas. You get too aggressive, bad things happen. There's too many weapons on this 49ers side of the ball. And that defense is going to give that offense fits. And I don't think Dak's going to be able to overcome what the Niners are going to be able to just piece together with Christian McCaffrey. And they can play short yardage. You want to blitz at me? Come at me. Oh, dump off. I can dump off to 3 different guys who can outrun everyone on your team. See what happens then.
I know we're low on time here, but you mentioned him so really quickly. You mentioned Nicky Bosa. Is he Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah, I don't think it's any question. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's absolutely the Defensive Player of the Year.
Agreed.
We got a little bit of time left. I'm just going to throw it out there. I think it's funny. We were talking the other day about brothers. We'll probably touch on that one week and talk about some of the best brothers in football. But so it's funny. Both brothers in the playoffs. Nick Bosa doing what Nick Bosa does, which is destroy people. Joey Bosa being a classic Charger and just complaining about the officials the entire time and can't keep his cool and keep setting the game to make sure his team doesn't lose a 27-point lead. So I think it's very funny when you see the difference in those two guys, both amazing athletes, but clearly Nick Bosa is the best. I don't think there's any question he's the Defensive Player of the Year. The dude's an absolute animal, and yeah, he's going to feast on some Dak Prescott. So I hope he gives us a little Zeke as he's over there standing over some people. It'll be a good time. So that's how we break it down. Both of us with KC winning the game. Mike taking the Giants over the Eagles. He's not wrong every time he does that. The Eagles do win. I got the Eagles winning that game. I just think they're too good of a team to lose to the Giants. At some point, that run's got to stop. We've seen the Giants be hot, and we've seen them reach the limits during the season. I think this is one of those games. We both have the Bengals beating the Bills. I think that's my favorite game of the weekend to go down and watch.
Agreed.
And then we got the Cowboys and the Niners. I'm just excited to watch the Niners beat up on somebody, and that's what they're going to keep doing until somebody stops them. And I don't know if that's going to happen this year.
Hey, man, when the Cowboys lose, America wins. So that's all I'm looking forward to.
All right. Well, Mike, it's been a good time chatting with you today. I can't wait for some football. And next week, we'll discuss some of these games. But until then, enjoy the games and talk to you later.
All right. Thank you so much.